The Boca Raton John Doe, 1982. Boca Raton, Florida. When I began on this case, I was planning on just covering one Boca Raton John Doe. But then I realized the story sadly included so many more people. But then I had to figure out, obviously, how to cover it, and I normally cover each person at a time. But in this case, it feels like I'd be dragging it out for screen time, and I don't want to do that. I want to respect everyone involved, so there's links under this video to each specific case if there's something about one of the cases a viewer may be able to identify. When you view the photos here, the number next to them indicates the number assigned by the Boca Raton coroner. It was in March of 1982 when a wooden Haitian freight ship that was described as old and not in great condition would become a victim of really rough seas and heavy rain. This would lead to more victims of another kind. There were 10 people listed as on board. 2 women were found too late, but some men survived. They continued on their way and were found walking along the highway. Little did the Coast Guard or the Boca Raton authorities know that it was much worse than they believed at the time. The Esperancia ended up capsizing near Boca Raton, but all of the paperwork seemed to be in order, and it of course indicated there were only 10 people. It makes me wonder if perhaps some people were kept below and couldn't escape, especially given while the freighter's paperwork indicated far less occupants, in the end it was much worse, and only 6 very lucky men would escape the capsizing of the 70-foot freighter known as the Esperancia. They would find washed ashore the hull and debris, which included brooms that had been made by hand, containers of peanuts, pumpkins, and various wooden kitchenware. All would litter the beach behind the Holiday Inn in Highland Beach. It was a shock for the high-end coastal community, and it's noted they were usually pretty insulated from this sort of thing. It was an exclusive community that generally just high-end tourists went to. The tourists and those living in the area would stand in heavy rain to watch the Coast Guard search by helicopter looking for human remains. Those waiting along the beach took brooms and wooden bowls as souvenirs. There were initial concerns, too, that there may have been a smuggling situation, transporting Haitian refugees, and of course, we know now that was the case. However, Coast Guard Petty Officer Mike Kelly would report that did not appear to be the case at the time saying only 10 were on board, and of course, they couldn't know what the truth was. It shows how difficult it is to counter fraudulent paperwork without proof. The delay in being able to respond within the bad weather unfortunately meant it wasn't a rescue operation, but it was instead a retrieval operation. In this case, there were 3 men wearing only bikini underwear who were found walking down the middle of a busy street. They seemed dazed, and there they were in the middle of South Ocean Boulevard, just shortly after midnight. They didn't speak English, and they were reduced to trying to communicate with those who stopped using hand gestures. Those in charge kept looking, and they did find a lucky 5th survivor found nearby. One remaining man was found unconscious in an area just north of the debris site. He would end up hospitalized in critical condition, incredibly lucky to still be alive. The local police sergeant, Harry Mayer, would comment that this happened in an area where the man wasn't visible and it was raining really hard, so it was a miracle he was found at all. The police sergeant would say that it must have been a rough night with the wind and rough seas on the beach for him to be able to survive. The police tried to gauge the number on board. One survivor indicated there were 25, but he later revised it to 10 again. The sergeant would express frustration. There was trouble communicating with the people, and they had majorly conflicting facts. And it didn't help that the area seas were awful, and heavy wind and rain made it hard to look for other survivors. It was, in fact, bad enough that Palm Beach County schools closed for the day. The weather hampered in the rescue and the retrieval. I think this is one where authorities get an A+ in their response. They wanted to find survivors, and they did a lot to try to find them despite turbulent waters. The Coast Guard wasn't even allowed to send their boats out there because it was so dangerous. The Esperancia started its voyage in Haiti, eventually docking in Nassau over a weekend due to some mechanical problems. The wooden vessel was a general cargo ship, and it had a wooden rudder. I couldn't find any reference to where its occupants were at the time, but I suspect they were probably trapped on board. There's just no way to know for sure. The survivors would be held by the Highland Beach Police prior to being turned over to immigration authorities. But the really dark shift was when 7 men and 3 women washed ashore in the area along with all of the debris behind the same hotel. A final man associated with the wreck would wash ashore near St. Augustine. The 11 victims can be seen here. No matter their immigration status, these are men and women who are born to families who love them and they just disappeared somewhere in a foreign land. That alone means they deserve the return of their names. This wasn't even the only time this would happen in the area. In October of 1981, 20 miles away, there was another rickety old boat that would capsize in turbulent waters would happen off the Atlantic coast. In that case, 33 Haitian refugees succumbed to the water before they could be rescued. So my question was why? For me, that is the most important part of the story, who they were, why they made the choices that led to tragedy. In the early 1980s, 40,000 Haitian migrants came to the United States seeking political asylum, and many of these individuals would achieve permanent resident status. They had actually fled here starting in the 1960s and the 1970s. Haitians immigrated to the U.S. due to miserable conditions under several dictators. The economy in Haiti was a mess, and there were multiple natural disasters that gave some of those suffering the belief that entering another country would give them a chance for a better life. President Jimmy Carter created a new immigration rule called entrance for Haitians and Cubans during the 1970s, and there were also a lot of Cuban refugees. They were allowed to enter the U.S., but their fate would be decided by later legislation, which is a very odd rule given the legislation, of course, didn't happen because anyone in the U.S. knows hardly ever does anything happen. It's two sides fighting against each other. So not a huge surprise. So the ones allowed into the U.S. lived their life in a limbo of sorts, waiting for this legislation that was promised that didn't happen, kind of kicking the can down the road. And that often hurts everyone in the end, unfortunately. Ronald Reagan, once he was president, would reverse this rule, sending the Coast Guard to intercept those fleeing like our John and Jane Does here. They would intercept the boats and jail anyone coming to the U.S. declaring refugee status. I don't mean this to be political at all, but Ronald Reagan is a part of this case. He was sworn into office in January of 1981, just prior to our John and Jane Does found here. I imagine they know the dangers incoming, so I hope people can feel empathetic for why. They'd had several brutal dictators. Those living in Haiti just started fleeing to other countries. By 1982, the same year our story takes place, Haitian refugees were in full force. 14,000 Haitians were detained and then incarcerated by the Reagan administration. However, the Refugee Center would sue the government in June of 1982, and the court ruled in favor of the Haitians being held, resulting in the freeing of 3,500. A judge would later block the U.S. from returning them to Haiti. This was based on a First Amendment protections. A lot more happened in the years that followed, but I'm just laying the groundwork for our does. They were the ones that I feel it is my job to be an advocate for. So for this video's purpose, it's not about the law or right or wrong. It's just about 11 people who essentially rolled the dice in hopes of a better life. And then their boat capsized and everything was lost. The people who love them still deserve to know what happened to them. I imagine there's a good chance families believe they're somewhere in the U.S. choosing not to contact them. There's just so much pain when people disappear. Anyone with any information on their identities is asked to call the number on the screen. You can also contact NamUs and ask to have your DNA checked for free if you think it may be a close family member. The Boca Raton John and Jane Does of 1982 have gone unidentified for 42 years.
Huge thanks for watching all the way to the end, and a big thanks to all of you who consistently like and comment on the videos. Whether you leave a full comment or an emoji, it makes a huge difference. So if you consistently watch my videos, maybe take a moment to subscribe. It's a huge push toward the videos being suggested to new people. The next goal is 20,000. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care of yourselves and each other.